And then I actually just kind of remembered some stuff I kind of would want to go over, which is not as big of news as those people that we just talked about, but the Panic at the Disco singer quit. It's not like any big.
That's kind of big.
Well, no, it is big news. It's more of like kind of surprising because
it's not like they fizzled out. They were still huge, right?
Well, yeah, they got really big at first, and then so what I heard was I heard it on the radio, and they were saying how like I thought this was kind of interesting, but so Pete Wentz of Fall Out Boy was recording from Under the Cork Tree, which is probably their best and big for Fall Out Boy's biggest and best album in LA.
Don't even get me started with Fall Out Boy.
I love Fall Out Boy. I know you don't like them, but
no, it's not that I don't like them.
It's
just that they opened for us and then they got famous and we went to college. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's always a bummer, isn't it? So the same thing happened with Something Corporate with me, although I don't know. Yeah, they did. They actually, Something Corporate actually did technically open for us. Something Corporate, obviously, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So what I heard on the radio was that Pete Wentz, so Panic at the Disco had sent Pete Wentz 2 songs. Pete Wentz, and this was their first album, before their first album. Pete Wentz heard their 2 songs, liked them so much, he immediately flew to Las Vegas to go see them live in the middle of the recording, I think. And like signed them to what is Pete Wentz's label, which I think is Fueled by Ramen. They got huge. Panic at the Disco. The singer is a very good-looking guy and a good singer, so it makes sense. And then they kind of had like a downfall for like 10 years. And then not by a downfall, I mean like they weren't as big. And then recently they got big again. And then recently he quit to focus on family. I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot to talk about here, and we don't have too much more time. But I just kind of wanted to cover this real quick. Yeah. So I think it's mainly him too. So like when he quits, even though he's there with a band, it's pretty much made. If you look at the Apple Music page of him, it's pretty much just him. So he's quitting the band, which is surprising because
he's doing a solo career.
Probably not, because like I said, it's mainly just him. I mean, maybe he'll do a solo career more on his own terms. I don't know. And then also Fall Out Boy's guitarist, Jeff Tremaine, I think, quit or not quit. He's leaving Fall Out Boy due to like what do you call it? Mental illness type stuff, which he posted. Okay, this isn't him. Yeah. So he quit due to Joe.
I see him Troman.
Yeah. So what was it like? What was it like having them open for you? Like, did you talk to them at all or anything? Or
so the first show I ever played in our band, my first band, not my first band, but my first band that actually did something. We had Plain White Tees open, or we opened for Plain White Tees in Illinois at the Arabian Nights barn and bar, whatever. And it's a nice venue in Illinois. And that was fun. But then later on, we didn't even know who Fall Out Boy was. Like they weren't even on the map at the time. It's all Chicago music, right? So, there's certain bands that come out of there like Lucky Boys Confusion or, Plain White Tees or whatever. And so Fall Out Boy opened for us in Naperville next to a Hooters. I can find it. I literally did find it on the map. I was like, this was the bar. And it was like this small bar that had, tennis or volleyball courts indoors because it's Illinois, so it's cold, right? So, they opened for us and we were watching them because you always respect the bands that are opening for you, right? Like, you watch them and cheer and whatever, like just to be respectful. And we decided at some point, we're like, hey, we need to go into the van and have some beers. I was like, I can't listen to these guys anymore. And so fast forward years later,
because you didn't like them because they weren't good, or
yeah, exactly. And so
oh wow,
yeah, and so fast forward years later, like I don't know, 8-10 years later, I'm in California now and graduated college and blah blah blah. And I'm out here and my buddy calls me, he's like, turn on the AMAs. And I was like, the what? And he's like, American Music Awards. I was like, why? I don't want to watch that. He's like, turn it on now, it's live. And I was like, I don't give a shit, right? And so turn them on, and there was this band playing. I'm like, what am I watching? And he goes, remember that band? And I was like, nope. And they were singing like, I'm going down, down in an early around. Like, and they're singing that. And I was like, I have no idea who this is, but they're good. They're good. And he's like, that's Fall Out Boy. Remember circa whatever? And he's like, do you remember the Hooters bar or next to the Hooters bar that we played at in Naperville? I was like, yeah, I do. And he's like, remember that band we ignored and we told them we all agreed they sucked and we're going to go have some beers in the van? And I was like, yeah, I do. And he's like, that's them. And I was like, son of a bitch. But what was it like opening for them? It wasn't like they were Fall Out Boy now, right? Like, yeah, they had a lot of studio time, a lot of production. I'm just going to leave it at that. And became very pop punk. If I open for him now, obviously that's a different story, but opening for him then, or them opening for me, I just whatever. So
yeah. So I've like two stories on that. Well, first of all, who told you who called you? Was it one of the guys in your band?
Yeah, it was my drummer Dan. Yeah.
Dan. Yeah.
And he doesn't watch American Music Awards. Like he's the most least sold out person, right? But he brought it to my attention. And they did great.
Yeah.
Like I'm happy for them. It's just, it's kind of one of those jokes with me. It's like Fall Out Boy. I know Jordan hates them, and I'm like, I don't hate them. I love their music. I just, it's kind of like I went to college and they, went to the studio more and whatever.
Yeah. They made it and you didn't. And they're one of, in terms of music, you didn't. And they're one of the only band. I heard somebody on a podcast talking about this, but they're one of the only bands that have probably made it. And then what this person was saying, I think, was like kind of made it. They're one of the only bands that's made it that was in that scene in terms of in terms of that like emo pop punk indie scene. Well, there's obviously Blink-182, but I wouldn't necessarily put them in the same. Blink-182 is straight pop punk.
Even Green Day.
There's Green Day, but what this guy was saying, I think, was talking about more kind of like indie emo, even though you could say Fall Out Boy is pop punk. But and there's only a few bands, like obviously there's Green Day, Blink, and other bands, but there's only a few bands that really have made it to the point where like they're millionaires. But yeah, so I have a story where it wasn't as big because we went on tour. As part of our tour, Finch's brothers band, and they were good too. They were called we were Ender and they were called Endor. And we went on tour with Finch's brothers band, and like I was outside having beers with them. And at the time we were like a Christian band, and the singer of our band was like really hardcore Christian. And he like gave me shit about having like beers with them, which was stupid. And then we were also on another tour where we were playing at this show, and I think we ended up like spending the night. It was like a church type venue, and we ended up spending the night there. And then Fallout or Brand New and Taking Back Sunday were coming to play. And I think one of them, or maybe the opening, they couldn't find an opening band. So we almost got on that bill, which would have literally been me like playing with my
idols,
my favorite bands, literally, like even possibly still, but we didn't end up playing it. So anyways, this, if you want to, I'm not going to read this, but like basically the guitarist of Fall Out Boy is taking time off due to mental health. And then so if you want, we can move on to
I want to talk to you about Finch though. Like I saw them live once before, and it was in like Milwaukee, I think it was, and drove all the way up from Chicago, which is a couple hour drive, and saw them in Milwaukee, and then drove home. I remember their lead singer. They sing "What It Is to Burn," right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, and so it might have been "What It Is to Burn" or whatever song it was. Dude is doing, their lead singer has a broken arm and a cast, and he's doing backflips off of the amplifiers, like the guitar.
Whoa.
And I'm like, dude, your doctor would not approve of this. But you know what? I'll tell you, it was a great show. Like, I mean, they were intense. Like, I would love to see them again. Yeah.
I mean, dude, like, yeah, during that period, Finch was also one of my favorite bands. And I think that I went to see them 6 times in like a very short period of time, because they live around here and they were playing like a bunch of shows. And I like literally went to them to see them 6 times, probably like in a year. And when you say intense, it's like, fuck, man, like there are just no bands like that anymore. And same with Taking Back Sunday. And then one last
the only people I would compare them to is like the energy of Rage Against the Machine, or like, yeah, pretty much just Rage Against the Machine. Like, or like not Slipknot, because that's all like doctored up, like whatever. Like I like their music, but yeah, I would say Rage Against the Machine. Like, where they're just jumping around, shaking their heads. Like, there's so much energy watching Finch live. Like, I don't know. They're amazing.
Which is sad, because it's hard, like you said, Rage Against the Machine it's a good comparison, and it's a very, very good, nice comparison, because Rage Against the Machine also has a ton of energy. And it's sad that you just can't see with too many bands. Like, I haven't been to a show with that much energy in fucking forever, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's sad. But yeah, and Finch unfortunately is one of those bands that only made one really big record, and then they kind of, aren't as big anymore, which is sad.